Happy Friday night. Welcome back to Ribbon Candy Hooking. Cheers, my dears. First things first, this is not coffee. This is cranberry wine. So good from Cape Cod cranberries, but bought in Vermont. Good to see you all, everybody. I missed you this week. I hope you had a wonderful Canada Day and 4th of July. Lots of catching up for us. But great to see you on Friday. Gosh, is it Friday? How is that possible? I have a very cozy episode for you today. We will be looking at historic rugs. So rugs that are now for sale on eBay and I think mostly eBay tonight. It's remarkable the rugs that turn up in online auctions, whether they are like live auctioneer auctions or eBay, Etsy, all over the place. It's remarkable. And I have some really exceptional examples, I think, tonight. So I want to get cozy. I want to have our drinks. Again, cheers, my dears. And I'll visit with everybody in a second. Mmm. Cranberry wine. You know what it tastes like? Have you ever had Ribena? That's probably not good. It's like a British product. It's very common. It's like a blackberry syrup. Is it blackberry? Gosh, I wonder what kind of berry it is. But it's very, very good. It's not that it's bad. It's just a fruit wine. I suppose I should have known it was a fruit wine because it said cranberry wine on the label. I also had rhubarb wine, and that was very, very sweet. And I liked it, but Joss kind of saved me from drinking the entire bottle while we were away by bumping into me on her way to the pool, and the mug came smashing down to the ground with like half of the bottle, contents of the bottle inside of it. So she saved me those calories. I guess I should say thank you. Thank you. I didn't say thank you at the time. Mm. So I want to look at some rugs that are available online right now and talk about collectability. Let me bring you a little bit more to me. Collectability, value, what's good, what's bad. Whether you are a collector, or you're thinking to collect, or you just like pretty rugs, and you want to know what to look for if you want to start a collection, these are conversations that we'll have tonight. So let's see who's here. Melissa, great to see you. Welcome back. Well, it's me. Well, it's me saying welcome back to myself, but it's good to see everybody. It is hot here too. I just turned the air conditioner off. I'm going to turn this stupid ring light off. If you can't see me, let me know. I can see the glare of it in my glasses, and I feel like I've been to the eye doctor, when they dilate your eyes and your eyes are doing like crazy things. I feel like that. So I'm going to leave it off until it gets darker. You tell me if you can't see me. It's not really about this. It's about the slideshow that you're about to see, which will be a lot better than this. Yeah, it's so hot here. It's crazy. Mom, great to see you. Happy cocktail night. Diane, hello. Melanie, hello. Hot and humid in Western Washington as well, up to 92 degrees today. Luckily, your craft room is in the basement. That is lucky. Oh, it's just been a question of escaping the heat or managing the heat, right? I mean, it's for a lot of us, it's been incredible heat. I guess it's the speed that it came on as well. We got slammed with this wall of heat. Makes me think of my sister's boss. I probably told you this last year when it was hot. He's such an odd person. I can't imagine he watches the show, so I could say that. He's an art restorer, and very eccentric, very eccentric. But my sister said that they were walking downtown in New Haven last year when it was this like just horrible spate of very hot days, like unmanageably hot days. And she said it was like for a normal person, it was unbearable. And he was walking across the crosswalks of New Haven like this, like loving it. And another woman, I guess, came toward them, and she was like this too, like she was just moving through a steam room in a dance. And they saw each other, like they didn't know each other, but they both went, "This is great, isn't it?" Because they're like this weird subculture of people, I guess, who love this incredible oppressive heat. I do not belong to that subculture. Maybe you do, but I'm thinking none of us here that are complaining about the heat belong to that. Ryan, great to see you. Happy Friday. From hot North Texas. You're probably going to win the award for the temperature. Hun Daisies and Polaroid Art Projects tonight. Peace and love. Oh, Ryan, great to see you. Jen, that makes more sense. I thought, I don't know that one yet. Melanie and Becky, great to see you. Happy Friday. Cheryl, happy Friday. Anita, 75 degrees Fahrenheit, London, Ontario. Oh, that is nice. Nice and windy. You've got the best weather so far. You win for the good weather tonight. Wendy, beautiful evening in Western Pennsylvania. Great to see you, Wendy. Diane, you've got rum. Oh, that sounds good. Judy, oh, I need coffee. Enjoy your cocktails, everyone. I don't blame you. I could use a little bit of energy myself. But coffee doesn't go good with cranberry wine, does it? Well, maybe sangria would have gone good with, well, that's two wines. Maybe that's pushing it when I'm live, right? Karen, great to see you. You've been sending me some fantastic links. I have been like at a dead run lately. I'll catch you up a little bit before we start the content. It's been a lot of fun stuff, and I've had some great rug adventures. Great to see you in Black Forest, Colorado. Let's see. Linda H. in Massachusetts, great to see you. April, great to see you in Illinois. Robin, cheers, my dears, in Wisconsin, great to see you. Been thinking about a Wisconsin date. That's been on my mind all day today. I'm figuring it out. Mm, I don't like that, but I'm going to drink it. Pat's Gallery, great to see you. Cheers, my dears, from sunny Southern California. Linda B., cheers, my dears. Dave, hi everybody, hard apple cider. God, you have the best food. And salmon patties, old school in Toronto. Oh, that sounds so good. Dawn, great to see you. Thank you so much for your help on the page this week. You are so sweet. Just got up from a nap, making a cup of coffee. Perfect. Perfect. Just starting out. Oh, it's going to be a great show. I'm excited. I'm excited to be together, and I'm excited to look at some really exceptional rugs. Oh, Bonnie, hi, y'all. Hot and humid in stormy Palm Coast, Florida. Great to see you, Linda, and great to see you. Happy cocktail night. You're sitting at your frame, so you won't be commenting. No, you should sit back and do your work for sure. I'm glad that you're there. Lisa, great to see you. Happy Friday. Hooking your Halloween rug and thinking of cooler days. That isn't that the case? Like when it's so hot and oppressive, you can't help but think about that sweater weather. I was picturing myself like wearing jeans, and like a turtleneck sweater. I mean, why? Why was I doing that? I guess I was just thinking forward to the next season. But I suppose we all do that. Shannon, great to see you. Happy Friday. It was so much fun running that crossword show. I really, really enjoyed that. Allie, cheers, my dears. Great to see you. I should probably have some water too, right? Because I'm just complaining about how sweet this wine is, but I'm inhaling it, obviously. So this has been a holiday week in the U.S. and also in Canada, Canada Day on Sunday. So with it being summer, and I want to remind you, we're doing summer hours on this show. So on Mondays and Wednesdays, I will be with you at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Friday stays the same at 7. I'm just trying to create a situation over the summer because my kids are still young, crazy but true, and they want to do stuff. So I'm trying to create a situation where we can have adventures. And we had a big adventure this week. We went to Vermont for the 4th of July, and it was quite an adventure, and lots of things happened on that trip. So I want to share some of them with you because a lot of them kind of crossed over into our life together and things that you might be interested in too. So let me come over here. Cheers, Allie. If you're going to say cheers, I'm going to have another sip. Oh, before we get going on that, I have to tell you, the whole time I was gone, my phone was pinging because I ought to show it to you here in person. A split bloom garden continues to be the best-selling pattern I've ever had. This is a mini punch pattern, right? So it's a very small pattern. It comes as a kit. It's a class later this month. I hope you saw the pictures of it because this is like the best kit I've put together so far. It's the way all the kits will look eventually when I convert them. But oh, let me show you. I just was doing the backings. Hold on one second. The backings look like this, but I haven't numbered this one yet, right? So the backings look like this, but everything is numbered on it that corresponds to this ring of colors. So that's how, oh, thank you so much. Jay just brought me some water. He's so sweet. I am hot. We turn the air off and immediately it hits you like that again. So I've been putting those together and that has just been over the top, like fantastic. I'm so glad that you're enjoying it so much because I'm about to release some other patterns that are more in this mid-century kind of vein. Judy, it's really, really good kit. Oh, good. I'm glad, Judy. It comes with, I don't usually do stuff that comes with like instructions and all that, and I should. It's just when I started this company, it was tiny and it got busy fast, and it was right at the beginning of COVID. It was January of 2020. I was right there on the threshold and obviously didn't know it. and everything happened so fast, and then the two books, and I haven't had time to regroup or to rework the website or to do anything yet. So I hope that I will have time after I finish the second book to do all that stuff and to make all of the kits such that they come with directions for beginners and a lot more information, because I know when I buy rug hooking kits from other companies, or when I did, or when I have somebody has something that I can't live without, they typically don't. But I would like to, because I think I'm catching a lot of beginners, and I think beginners are coming to this channel because there's so many videos. So I'd like to be better about that. But that is an indicator of things to come for sure. So if you like that pattern, it is still there as the mini punch kit, the Russian punch kit in this scale. But I also put it up over the weekend as a rug hooking pattern on either linen monk's cloth or rug warp in two different sizes, so a much larger scale. So this comes this way as a kit, with or without a class, and the class is only $20 more, which I think is a great bargain. I'm trying to keep this low so that you can do a lot more fun stuff and try something different, right? I want you to be able to try, because this kit also comes with the tool and the square frame. That's 11 by 11. By the way, I taught on Sunday. I taught twice on Sunday, the composition class at night, which was tons of fun, color and composition. But during the day, I was in Madison, Connecticut teaching in person, and I brought some of those square frames. That was the first time I brought them into a classroom situation, and people loved them. They loved them. So those are the first ones that I got in that arrived from the supplier in Europe. They're from England, and people loved them. I mean, I think everybody who was in the class bought one just to have it. I'm not just saying that. And I don't have them in the store yet, but I will have them in the store. But it does come free, one of them, with this kit. And I think I will stock them because they worked great. And what else? All I want is for things to work and for people to not be upset, right? And to be happy and inspired and to have success with their projects. So, yeah. So that worked great. What a busy day that was. Oh, Linda, good to see you. Homemade hibiscus. Oh, you're kidding me. Iced tea for a hot Connecticut day. That sounds incredible. Oh, I love flowered flavored stuff. That sounds amazing. Lorraine, great to see you. Judy, great to see you. What size needle should be used with the mini punch? Okay, so Judy, I know in your shop you have, I think you have like the original Russian needles that are like 1 strand, 2 strand, 3 strand. This would be at least a 3 strand. I would have to test that because this is more, I don't have the needle. Do I have a needle with me? I don't have a needle with me. Hold on, let me see if I have a needle with me. The different companies historically, for both rug hooking and punch, have not standardized needles and just go with their own numbering system. And historically this works well. I thought this was one, but that's not one. I don't have one with me. It wouldn't matter much because the thing that I've been using is the Pretty Punch, so that's like a vintage tool. I really like the larger punches. I know that doesn't help, but I'm about to stock. The package is also on the way, coming from Europe. I ordered like hundreds of a different punch that are new, and they're also adjustable. So they're like the Pretty Punch. They adjust the height of the needle size, so you can get a higher pile loop or a lower pile loop. And the shaft is large. Is not large. It's the same as the Pretty Punch. So 1, 2, 3 ply will go through, but also sock yarn will go through if it doesn't have like a heavy luster on it. If it's super shiny or feels, what am I trying to say, like cloudy, if you know what I mean. It won't go through the shaft as easily. But the Pretty Punch, and again, vintage, so not made anymore, but the needle that I'm ordering that's on a par with that, right, same size, works the same way, does the different heights of the needles, all of that, that'll be the one that I stock. You'll be able to use any sort of combo in there. But if you were to use like 1 strand, right, because Judy, you sell a lot of 1 strand stuff at the needlepoint store. Judy's store is Thistle Needleworks on the Silestine Highway in Weathersfield, Connecticut, my favorite needlepoint store. There's a lot of 1 ply. And even with like something like a DMC floss, that goes through easily the punch needles that I have in stock and that I will continue to stock 2 different ones because I'm still into the vintage supply of the Pretty Punch. So yes, sometimes the thread is too thin and I double it up or treble it up. Also possible. but it's hard to compare them to the 1, 2, 3 strand system, and it's hard to compare them to the Ultra Punch because the Ultra Punch has a changeable tip on it. Um, I'll try to create a video that shows there aren't standards, but that creates a standard between the most common brands, like the actual Russian punch. I forget what it's called. It's like a 75-letter word. Um, those, I don't think those are made any longer, but a lot of people have them, and those have the 3 different kinds of punches, 1, 2, 3 strand. How those compare to, for example, the punch that I'm using, the Pretty Punch, the Ultra Punch, and some of the basic Amazon punches that they sell. There's a lot of punches being sold on Amazon. Is it Susan? Not Susan Bates. The other very common, not Clover. There's another brand that sells a mini punch that looks like a mini punch, but it's actually a traditional punch. Fine, it's not mini at all. And the only reason I make that distinction, because in a way it's like, who cares what the thing is called? If your thread goes through and makes loops, that's fine. But if your thread goes through and makes a giant hole because the shaft, the needle part of the shaft is too big and broad, then if you're punching with something much thinner, it won't stay, right? Because you've like punched an actual hole, like an abyss, and then you've got like this one little thread coming out of it. So there, it has to be somewhat comparable, and it isn't the way that it's set up. And it's the same thing with rug hooking, right? These things are not actually standardized because it's much better to not be standardized, to just be an upstart, I'm being sarcastic, and start creating your own system of, for example, rug hooks, and say to everybody, well, this one's for a 3, this one's for a 4, this one's for a 5, and you sell more that way. But in reality, you don't need all that stuff, right? And it's the same thing with mini punch. Thinking of ordering the kit, want to make sure I have the correct needle. Judy, tell me what needle do you have? Are you thinking of the Russian needle, the 1, 2, 3 strand? Because the 3 strand would be good, possibly the 2 strand. I think that the 3, between the 2 and the 3 strand for the materials that I have in this particular kit. And it's acrylic in the kit, right? The thread looks like cotton, but it's acrylic. It's very, very high performing, very pretty thread, very colorful. But if your needle doesn't work, Judy, I'll just bring a different needle for you because we're practically neighbors. April, good to see you. Guess you see what I have. And try the thread in it and see. Yeah, I mean, it's very, unless it's not going to be too small, I don't think, because this is a very fine thread, but it could be too big, right? And then you would have to double up just to make sure you don't punch that huge gaping hole, and then the little thread comes right back out, because the weaver's cloth is stretchy, right? It has like a big synthetic content part to it. But all the same, you don't want to test that, do you? With all these little loops. Graham, great to see you. And rug hooking and punch needle friends, oh, I'm so glad that you're there. Great to see you. Judy Linda B says the kit includes a needle. Oh yeah, this kit does include a needle. My future kits will not, because I know so many people bought it that you won't need a future needle, but this kit currently comes with a needle that will already work. So I'm sorry, I missed that part of the question. Duh, I'm so sorry. Yeah, maybe I'll have another sip. I just haven't drank enough. That's the problem. No, don't worry about it. So that has been a great, great amount of fun making these kits, and I'm making 18 more since I was gone, which is very nice. Thank you very much for the orders. I really, no, it's me, Judy, being a ding-dong. So, yeah, so let me know how this is going, and I'll get the rest of the kits. Oh, Jean, great to see you. I'll get the rest of the kits out shortly. Let me just tell you another bit of news. Jean, I hope it's okay if I blast my mouth. We won't say anything specific, but I just want to remind you that in our Facebook group, which is called Rug Hooking and Punch Needle Club, Jean always organizes the rug giveaway, right? Where you make a rug and you exchange it with someone else, not giveaway, exchange, the rug exchange. And the next giveaway will be coming up soon. So be looking at the Facebook page for information about the deadline, about what to do, about how it works. And Jean is here live, right? In case you're only, Jean, if somebody's just a YouTube person and they are not on Facebook, how could they get involved in the exchange if they wanted to? What would be the best way for them to do that? Because the rug exchange is such a fun way for people who are, whether you're new to rug hooking, you're just new to the group, or you just feel like reaching out and making friends. It's so much fun to work on something that will go to somebody else and to know that you will be receiving something from another buddy who you probably don't know yet. It's just a fun way to make friends, and want to make this available to everybody because not everybody is on Facebook, and I get that completely. So I went away to Vermont, and one of my reasons for wanting to go to Vermont is because my very good friend Kirsten lives there. And you might know Kirsten also from Ribbon Candy Hooking. She is a huge part of the brand. She is a designer, Kirsten Gay, and her designs are in the Ribbon Candy Hooking store. She does a ton of admin stuff. She also manages the Facebook group. She manages it much more often than I do. And she does an excellent job of it. She is super smart, fun, thoughtful, diplomatic, talented, right? She really is. She really is. And she also hosts the Tuesday Hook Along every Tuesday, and that is between 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time and 1 p.m. And it's a great opportunity to make friends, to log on, to have your camera on or off or whatever you want. She's a great person to run that weekly event because she is so knowledgeable and she is so friendly, and such a good sort of she's a great host, right? She's a gracious and great host. So it was such a gift to be able to meet up with her. In this picture, we were at the what is it called? It was in Queechee, Vermont. I think it's called the Vermont Antique Center. I think it was just called the Vermont Antique Center. Big, huge antique center, actually 3 floors. Really fun. So we got together and we were fooling around in here, chatting, shopping. She recorded a video of me that was in the Facebook group. And I was going through the different stalls and I found a few things that related to rug hooking. So if you are not in the Facebook group, be looking on YouTube because I will move all of these videos also to YouTube. So far they just started on Facebook. We also recorded a video a couple of days later looking at her incredible, like, landmark. It's almost an all velvet rug. She's got a lot of other stuff in it, but it is more than 90% velvet. This is a pattern of hers called Bee and Me. And this is an extraordinary example of a backlit subject, right? Done in a graphic but quite realistic way. And we did a long video, almost 20 minutes long, I think, talking about how she did this. It was amazing, Linda, right? It was like an interview, and that was on Facebook as well. Again, I will move all these in the next couple of days because I just got home last night, to YouTube if you are not on Facebook. So we recorded that video as well. Incredible at that Vermont Antique Center. It's in this big plaza. There are places to eat. There are other shops that are quite nice. There's a great cheese and wine store. That's where, and beer, local stuff. That's where I got my cranberry wine, my rhubarb wine. Fantastic. But there's also an alpaca little farm, like right in the back of the plaza. And you can go and pet the alpacas or feed them. And it's just it's so much fun. The kids really loved it. And these are the ages of my kids, Teddy and Joss. So you can see why I'm often tired and sometimes I don't have a sense of humor. But it's just because they are 9 and 11 and it's summer, man. We are busy. This is an example of life all the time. And this is why she has got to constantly wear modesty shorts under her skirt. She calls them her modesties because we rarely, right, are normal. But we have a lot of fun along the way. We were doing stuff like this around Queechee. It's so much fun for kids this area, kids, grandkids. You know, this little store right on Queechee Gorge, beautiful, obviously deep gorge. It was, I'm sorry, I have to say it. It was gorgeous. Sorry, tour guide joke from the days of yore, but they had a little panning area there. She always loves a good pan. Whenever she gets a chance, they sell the bags of rocks and you put them through the river and they come out like this. And I took a bunch of pictures of her little tray because it was giving me all kinds of ideas for compositions. I just thought, little girl in summer panning for rocks. She knows what every single one of those rocks are because of the cartoon Steven Universe. I don't know if you have kids or grandkids, but it is a fantastic cartoon, and the main characters are all called after different gems. Really lovely. And I did a bit of antiquing right in between the panning and the hiking and all that stuff. This was in a different one. What's this one called? It's the second antique center in Queechee. It's on the same side of the street, right after the gorge, on the same side of the gorge on the left-hand side. Antiques Collaborative, that's what it's called. I think this is, I recognize this pattern. I think this is an antique pattern, but I think people through the years, I want to say Barbara Carroll, but I'm not sure, have drawn up the pattern, but it is an antique pattern originally, so anybody could do it if you like it. I don't love the subject on this. It was a beautiful rug. I think it was about 400. It was fantastic. It's gorgeous. But it makes me a little bit sad, you know, because when a cat has a mouse by the tail, usually nothing good comes of that. Is the cat stepping? It's a mouse. It's a mouse. So the cat's got a hold of them. This is a popular rug. This is a popular subject. It is playful, and for people with cats, there's no way you can stop them from doing this stuff. Beautiful marble cake cat. It was a modern rug for sure. It was in the last like 30 years. Really beautiful. I also found this rug on the stairs. The picture is wobbly, but this is more of a traditional early to middle 20th century rug. Plain border in brown. You know, brown isn't really my favorite for background colors, but this is actually with the two colors of brown. It was quite pretty. And I did like the pinks, reds, and purples in the center spray. Very understated. I don't typically like this school of rugs. It's weirdly, rugs of bouquets, Kirsten and I were saying this, they make me depressed for some reason. I don't know what it is, but there's something for me about that period of the sort of 40s, 50s when these kinds of rugs were so popular. There's something about this kind of forced gaiety of like difficult time coming out of the war years, and so many rugs with flowers. It just, I don't know, somehow it has the opposite effect on me. It feels so forced. Flowers, flowers, more flowers, let's get happy. Maybe not, and probably not a normal response, but it is just so much from that time. I went upstairs and I saw this. I did a video on this too. Maybe you saw it on the Facebook channel, and again, I'll get that onto the YouTube channel as well. Ribbon Candy Hooking channel, like, subscribe, share, and all of that. Beautiful, enormous, full-size replica of Magdalena Briner Eby's domestic zoo. So this is exactly based on a probably 1870s, 1880s era hooked rug that is very, very famous and collectible. So this was only $400. And when I saw it, I got very excited. If you saw me in the video, I was very excited. And then I saw that there was a moth on it, and I killed the moth, but that always makes me nervous and worried. So there was no way I was going to squeeze this into the car with other things that were wool in there, like my supplies and stuff. Somebody needs to buy it and put it into some kind of freezer storage for a while. If you can. It's enormous. It's on a board, right? It's mounted on a board. It is such a beautiful rug, but it worries me. It worries me to see one moth, because you never know how many more there are. You know what else worries me? Well, I pulled up the original Magdalena, and so the one that I was looking at the store in Queechee is actually punched. And I thought it was by looking at it, but I couldn't see the back. That would be the dead giveaway because it's mounted. Now, when I put these side by side for the presentation, can you imagine how worried I was that this was actually the original rug and I walked away from it for $400? I had to look very close and pull up lots of pictures to be sure in my mind. It is such a good replica. It is backwards, but I thought, what if they mounted it back? What if somebody who's a ding-dong mounted it backwards and it's flipped, right? Because the one on the left, that is the new one, is actually more faded than the original. And I thought, oh my God, what if somebody flipped it around by accident or whatever, mounted it, banged it into an antique store, and I walked away from it. But believe me, I spent some time on this. I pulled them up very, very close, and they are not the same rug. It's impossible, even without the color change, that they are the same rug. And the rug in the store does look new. It does look new, truly. Magdalena's in this photo looks new too, but absolutely beautiful. Great find. And, you know, I would have easily been able to be talked into taking it. I would have just been a bit paranoid about storage and where to put it. I don't have that kind of a freezer at home. So the next day, or the next day on the 4th of July, we went over to, if you're from New England, you've probably heard of Billings Farm. It's quite famous, beautiful old farm. I don't know if it's still a working farm. They move the animals around a few times a day. Some historic buildings there. It's quite small. It's something like a Sturbridge Village or a Sauter Village or a Plymouth Plantation or a Mystic Seaport, but much, much, much smaller. They had a quilt exhibition on, and that was a lot of fun. This is an annual event. There were maybe 20, 30 quilts in there. It wasn't a ton, but it was absolutely beautiful. And I did a video of the show too, and this is a weird face, but this is a still from the video I did that is online. Again, I'll get that on the YouTube channel as well, of the quilt show. It was a lot of fun. And look at these beautiful surroundings. I was thinking about asking them, because this space is called Quilt Hall. I was thinking about asking them about other, like if they ever do, like, for example, rug exhibitions. By the way, if I have a rug of yours, just know that I am organizing them and trying to get them back. If you sent postage to return, thank you so much. I have about 70 rugs to return, and all of them cost between $50 and $20 $15 and $20 to return. So if you haven't sent postage and you can, or send a check, I would super appreciate it. You can get in touch about that. I'm going through them bit by bit, but I wasn't expecting 70 rugs to come in, so it is a massive expense to be moving them around. But I would love to project forward to more rug shows, and I was thinking that this could be a really fun space. It's a large space, it's handicap accessible, it's super atmospheric. This was one of their rugs in their exhibition anyway, right? This is a crazy quilt rug with a little bit of text that you could pull up later. They only had 3 historic rugs there. Quilts. And then the ones like this. I love this one. It had a real 70s, 80s, early 80s feel to me. Really loved this one. In the video you see I'm going through many of the quilts, beautiful Dresden plate design, and saying who made them, right, in the video. So I'm just showing you 2 or 3 here. This is another beautiful, beautiful one of my favorites. This was Kirsten and I's favorite, I think, until we saw this all-cafe facet one, and that became both of our favorites pretty quickly. But absolutely beautiful quilt show, again, at Billings Farm in Woodstock, Vermont. It is on, I think it's on for a few months. And they had this little area. This is Teddy and Joss, my kids, where they allowed kids to make these little patches like a quilt and put them on the board. And it was really quite beautiful, because young kids had done it, older kids had done it, and some people hadn't done an image. They had written out something like, oh, my grandmother used to quilt, it's one of my happiest memories, and her teaching me, or I inherited this quilt, or little personal stories that were super, super, super beautiful. This is the one that Joss designed. It's not sideways. She made it this way. She created this quilt block that is like a tree, but the landscape is tipped. And it's raining, and like the petals, it's like gravity is pulling everything. So it's kind of like a topsy-turvy world, and it has like all these stitches in it. I've never seen her design anything like this, so I didn't quite get it, but I thought it was lovely. And I told her I would make this into a rug design or a punch design as soon as I can, something pretty. And Teddy really surprised me. I've never seen him do anything like this before. Can you believe I think I lost this? And I'm pretty heartbroken, because I've never seen him do anything but cartoon stuff. He's excellent at caricature. But I thought, this is so beautiful. I am definitely going to try to make something out of this. I've never seen him do anything in color. I've never seen him do a still life. This was just a big surprise. And I thought, putting that little table there for the kids really brings the art out. And people who are she's so creative, Dawn. They both are. They're so different. But it was such a good opportunity. They also had a scavenger hunt for kids. And they got ribbons that I'm going to use as bookmarks. They were beautiful ribbons that were like super sleuth quilt show ribbons. And outside they had maple cotton candy, right? I mean, so good. And there was like sort of a folk a folk band that were playing like traditionals, a little bit of more folky folk too, little Bob Dylan, very, very, very folk style. But it was really, really pretty, very atmospheric. Very atmospheric. And inside one of the houses there, it was like the manager's house. He must have been, I think he was very inspired by all those quilts. It was so much color coming at them. And Teddy being autistic, he really, you never know if he's going to connect to something or if it doesn't register. But I think it really inspired him. Because as soon as before we even got out of the, this is so crazy. Before we even got out of the quilt hall, he said, oh, you know what I've been thinking about, Mom? I was thinking about changing my name on Facebook to Ribbon Candy Ted. And I said, oh, Ted, that would be, at first I thought, how cute is that? That would be very, very nice. Because he loves to appear in these videos and say hi to you all. He really loves that. He feels super special and he enjoys that. And he's been trying to do more and more designs that I could make into something. He feels very sad, I think, that all of the images of him were cut out of this book. And again, this book is still in pre-order. It'll be out soon. There's 4, 5, 6 pictures of Jocelyn, but all of the ones of Teddy happen to be cut. I didn't notice it when I was proofing it. It breaks my heart too. So I think he's trying to get a little bit more ensconced into the brand. And I said, well, if you are going to change your Facebook name to Ribbon Candy Ted, you cannot post the crazy stuff that you post right now from TikTok, because then the brand is associated with that. So that's something I have to keep an eye on. I got to make sure he doesn't just suddenly do that one day. This was the only rug that I saw, and it's quite a notable rug too. It's a beautiful braided rug, and this was in the manager's house, so not the owner's house, not Billing's house. The manager was living high on the hog, no pun intended. Really, really wealthy, beautiful house with refrigerator inside, indoor plumbing in quite a few places, hot and cold, indoor bathroom, indoor lights, everything, electricity. As soon as there was electricity. Really beautiful house. There's only one piece of furniture in the house that is original to the house. Everything else was bought to be a period piece to kind of drum up the right feel. So none of this is really from the Billings estate, but I thought it was a beautiful rug and it was worth snapping a picture of. Real gorgeous coloration in this traditional 3-strand braided rug. The house looked like this. So there was lots to look at, and I was searching. You can see the gas being piped right in onto the table as well. They had that in a few places where they were almost like extension cords, right? Early extension cords, moving gas around. There's the photo in the back, the portrait of the mom, right? Because it was the guy who lived there, the manager of the estate, was Scottish, and he had his wife, and I think they had 3 daughters, and the mom lived with them too. And in some of the photos, this isn't a close-up, but if you go there, you'll see this. She looked really not happy. You know how a lot of Victorian photos you have to sit for so long that you're not happy. But she looked particularly unhappy. But then in that photo, it was clear that half of her face was frozen. So it was like she had certainly had some kind of paralysis or some kind of a stroke that left half of her face completely frozen, because it was very consistent. And I thought, how interesting. Just going through a house like this, where she's lived in those rooms, you notice something like that and you go, oh. And I bet she was with the I think 3 or 4 girls, right? No boys. I bet she had a wonderful life. I bet she was a wonderful grandmother. She just looks mean in the photos, but she can't help it. It was a funny little kind of a mystery to solve. So that was fun to see. I snapped a couple more pictures just in case you're interested. It wasn't the kind of historic house that was so set up that I would make an adventure just for the house. But there's maybe 2 or 3 rooms on the first floor that you could walk through with stuff like this beautiful log cabin quilt with shadows and light, right? Sort of Amish dark and light idea. And this room also had wallpaper on the ceiling that was reflective. It was a different print. It was like a polka dot, but it was to catch the light from the windows and also cast it down, right? Not just around from wall to wall in a reflective way, but actually from the ceiling down too. So I thought that was really kind of brilliant and unusual. And who doesn't like a painted sink? I mean, honest to God, who doesn't like a painted sink? I saw one in a thrift store not that long ago, and it was so inexpensive. And I didn't get it because I thought, this is not going to fit any of my stuff. Why didn't I just get it to hold on to it for someday when it would fit my stuff? Who doesn't like a painted sink, right? So that was a lot of fun. It was 4th of July, and Jocelyn made this ring for me at one of the craft tables. It's a firecracker. I don't know about you, but for the 4th of July, it was a very rainy and ominous day. It was pouring in this photo. We came out of the country store, and I got one of these. Do you remember these? Have you ever had a maple sugar pilgrim or pilgrim lady? Because you see the leaves all the time lately, but I have not seen a pilgrim man or woman for years, and I thought maybe that's not correct anymore or something. Maybe that's why I only see leaves and seashells. Why am I never seeing pilgrims anymore? Am I not supposed to say that word or something, and I didn't get the memo kind of a thing? I don't know the answer to that, but before I even put the car in drive, I had devoured her, and she was delicious, just like I remembered her. Really stormy 4th of July for us. We were actually sitting at the fireworks, and before the fireworks started, they told us to get in our cars because a violent storm was about to come, and it was fast moving. So everybody, it was like a disaster movie, Towering Inferno style, started running for their car, and it was a bad downpour. But then it stopped, and 10 minutes later, they started the fireworks, and it was absolutely beautiful. Was one of those nights where I think, oh, how could life ever be long enough with all of these great days, So much. Dave says, I remember maple sugar totem poles. Oh, we didn't have those here anyway. That sounds like something I would want to see at least. Vermont Country Store, speaking of things to see, this was the next day. I don't know if you've been to the Vermont Country Store. We went to both locations, Weston, the original, which is this one, my favorite, and Rockingham. And they're both so beautiful. Talk about old time everything. All your old shampoos. I put on Evening in Paris and a couple others. Oh, I mean, they had everything. They didn't have ombre rose. That's the one that I really used to love that isn't available anymore. But they, it's just so old timey. Maybe you get the catalog. The shipping costs a fortune, so it's great to be able to just drive over. Oops, wait a minute. Hold on. I lost our ketchup thing. Not ketchup. You know what I mean. Hang on. Sorry. You know me. You know me. Oh, wait a minute. That was a little bit too far. Oh, snap, a little bit too far. Hang on. Did a lot of shopping while I was there, I'll tell you. And I did a lot of videos too, because I tried to take you with me as often as I could to find some, sorry, Ted, to find some good stuff. So the antique store in Chester, Vermont, right, had some rugs. They were mostly ones that were kind of snoozers for me, but this one was extraordinary. I think this one it wasn't that expensive either. It was about 200. 20% off, right? Yeah, Melissa, you're seeing the Red Barn with the white windows. Karen says, I love the country store catalog. So atmospheric. It just puts you in the mood, right, of like another time, eating the candies, using the perfume, spraying, or the shampoo and spraying the perfume, and everything. It just brings you back to another, even if it was before your time, you still get this feeling like this magical feeling, that you remember it, or at least you remember the idea of it. So this rug would have come in at about 180. I didn't need it. It was another mounted one and it was enormous, but I thought it was just beautiful. Definitely a homemade pattern. I would think it's a hearth rug that's been mounted on a piece of wood or plywood or something, beautifully mounted, really well done. So again, 20% off. This one comes in under 200. That's an insane steal. I just don't need any more of this, right? I'm looking for really specific things at this point, but maybe you do. If I had any space, right, I would need some more of this. It's absolutely beautiful. And again, this is the antique store in Chester. I'm trying to think of what it's called. Twice. If anybody knows it, chime in. This rug was there too. This was a Welsh rug. And Jane, if you're on, I thought of you if you would like this. But it was in such bad repair that I was scared to look at it. It was super beautiful. I think this is an original pattern. This is like an emblem kind of rug, right? And it is this is Welsh, right? I had to look up the motto, and it translates as like without a blemish, like without spot, but without a blemish. I think claw is either the family or the place. Or clow, not sure. But it was a beautiful, emblematic rug, really different, really well done. You see, this is actually a wolf, right? And I only know that from finding claw online, because it looked like a horse, but it's a wolf. But you see that line, that dark line right under the wolf, that's a really bad split that's about to go right across. It's such a well-hooked rug. It has obviously been used, and the amount of directional hooking on this rug was absolutely astonishing. Do you see the diagonals there? This rug was only, I think, I want to say $50 or $60. I probably should have gotten it, but it was like it represented another project, right? And I don't know anything about this place or family, and I have yet to go to Wales. When I do, it'll be to visit Jane. But it didn't mean a lot to me personally, and it just represented another massive project. But in terms of being very unusual, it was very unusual, and it was very inexpensive. And, if you wanted to hop on Judy Taylor's website, get her book, Save That Rug, or Restoring Antique Rugs, right, on Facebook, she would definitely be able to give you tips, hints, or everything that you needed to restore a rug like this. This was a different store later in the day. Oh no, this was the next day. So this is also Chester. No, this is the same day. Also Chester, Vermont. This yarn store called Six Loose Ladies. How could I not go in here? Yarn and fiber. They had tons of yarn, tons of roving. Absolutely beautiful. I bought a bunch of Patagonia yarn that I had not seen in person before to do a Halloween punch project that I have in mind. It was absolutely beautiful. And in my hands here, I'm holding 2 grab bags. And they sell grab bags for either $10 or $12, and they're either cotton or wool. It says it on the bag. And it's got more than 4 times the value inside the bag, but it's just full skeins of yarn that they have discontinued or are at their end, or there's no more of the dye lot or something like that. So representing incredible value. And we actually did a video about this, me and Jocelyn and Teddy too. We opened the grab bags live in Bellows Falls and saw what was in them. And then we decided upon seeing what was inside these 2 grab bags, and it was outrageous value. It was incredible. You'll see if you watch the video, we got some beautiful things out of it. And it was another kind of Halloween composition in my head, like dark blues, bright oranges, rust, right? Really, really, really pretty. What a great product to stop and pick up if you are anywhere near there. Thank you, Pamela. Oh, Pamela, good to see you. Cheers, my dears. I'm going to take a sip and have a drink. This was an antique store. I'm so bad with names, in Bellows Falls. It's the only one. Bellows Falls, Vermont. One of my favorite towns in the world. There were lots of rugs, but also this beautiful applique penny rug. Lots of quilts. And you know, it seems like a super fancy place, but I have to say, I think the prices were fantastic. You know, some things were right at the sort of predictable, what you would expect price. But for example, this rug that's in the background behind this vignette, I didn't dare go any closer, but it is a geometric with a hit or miss fill. I feel like this was maybe $500 or $600, something like that. It is mounted professionally. I thought that was an incredible value for how vivid this rug is. I would say this is definitely a Victorian era rug, and it's just very, very vibrant, like it was made yesterday. Absolutely beautiful. It was a beautiful piece. That was the most expensive rug they had. They had this one as well. I didn't even check how much this one was. The commercial pattern, less interesting for me, but it was exciting to find so many rugs. They had this pile of little chair seats that were braided, and there were some braided, hooked round rugs in there too. I should have taken a picture of one. They had one that was a bouquet that was quite pretty. Commercial patterns, but quite pretty. Lots of braided rugs, lots of quilts. Again, this is Bellows Falls, Vermont. You see that beautiful swift in the center. I almost grabbed that too. I already have that one, so I didn't need it, and it wouldn't have fit in the car. So had I grabbed it, the children wouldn't have been able to come home anymore. This rug was beautiful as well. I think this was 60, something like that, maybe 65. Maybe you can see on the tag. This is a commercial pattern, and I saw this recently posted in our group. I thought this was a beautiful rug. For people that think that you cannot use analogous colors together, red, orange, and then that yellow, green, right in a row, and that's it, you can, and it comes out really beautiful. I just think, I'm not a big one for floral rugs, but this is so unusual. And you know what else is unusual? When I flipped it over, I was looking at it and I thought, I think that the black part is sewn, right? I think it's a hooked rug. I think it's hooked with number 3s, maybe number 4s. But I think that black part is sewn, because do you see how it just looks different than the backs of the other stitches? You can easily sew, right? You don't have, when you finish your composition, you finish your fills and all that stuff, and you look and you think not enough contrast, wish I would have outlined, you can definitely go in there with like black yarn, as I think was the case here, and then outline it. Though it won't be perfect, right? But it shouldn't be perfect either. It's supposed to be a nice old thing. And oh, I do have grab bags, don't I? I do have grab bags. I have wool and yarn grab bags on Ribbon Candy Hooking. Thank you. I absolutely do. I kind of forgot about that. But yeah, you can always go back in with a needle, right? If you feel there's no way to go in with a hook, you can always go back in with a needle and some really thin yarn, really thin sock yarn, something like that, and just needle it up. Try to get that definition. And yeah, you have to figure out how to leave a little bit of a loop when you're going in with a stitch, because particularly if you are going into an area, what this is called tunneling, right? This technique is called tunneling, that you have already hooked, right? You're not able to use a little chopstick or use any kind of little tool. If you are very technical and like to measure your loops as you pull them up, you won't be able to do that if it's already hooked. So you just have to leave up little loops like you're doing embroidery or something. You know, you're just doing stitches and you're keeping it loose, and it works really well. But I think that's what's going on with this rug. That's what it looked like anyway. They had this beautiful Waldoboro rug too. It wasn't colorful enough to be super interesting for me, but it was just a beautiful example of a Waldoboro rug, which is named such for the town in Maine, where they are known for doing a hooking technique that is very, very dense, and they then sculpt with a regular pair of scissors, sculpt the surface of it, and you get this beautiful high pile. So this has been trodden upon, I'm sure, for many, many decades. But you can still see it's puffy, puffy, and it had great high relief at the time. People always say when they see these rugs, aren't they jack trippers? Wouldn't you fall right over it in the middle of the room? I don't know, because when I see rugs like this on the floor, I don't step on them because I see them. It would be like stepping on a child, right? So I don't. But I can't imagine that they weren't jack trippers back in the day. Don't you think that there's been many a fall had tripping on the high pile of a Waldoboro rug? Maybe not. Judy says, do people ever outline first and then fill in? Yeah, that is the most common thing to do. You would only do tunneling, Judy, if you had done a boo-boo and you realize that you finished the piece and there's not great contrast and it's going to drive you crazy, and you don't want to change the colors, right? Because sometimes people are like, nope, different color. I do this all the time. I'm like, no, I liked the colors and that's why they're there. I like the colors in the first place. So I'm not going to change the colors. So the only thing that's left for me is adding a little bit of an outline. And I only do that when I have fobbed up in that particular way. Because normally it makes a lot more sense and it's a lot easier to outline before you start doing your fills. Even if you then have to pull the outline out and rehook it, right? At least there's some kind of a placeholder so that there's room for a little outline. But yeah, if you make a mistake, this is one of the many ways, very forgiving craft, one of the many ways that you can correct that little mistake. And it's not a big deal. Hang on, let me bring you, we're getting right to the present and right to some rugs that are not rugs I saw this weekend. This is another one that's at the antique store in Bellows Fall. You know, these rugs don't do a ton for me, but I will say this one is quite pretty. Yellow and brown, I think, are my least favorite colors. And gray blue is right up there as my least too. So this one doesn't speak to me a ton. But I will say, if I see a brown background, it is nice to have a nice caramel background like this. Caramel is such a warm and energetic color compared to just like brown, right? Like dark brown. Caramel is very lively. So in that way, I looked at this rug and thought, ooh, you know, it is brown, and I'm not a big fan. Because I think it saddens the colors around it, in my opinion, right? We all feel differently about colors. That's why we had such great conversations in the color and composition class. But I also like the braiding. There's 3 rounds of braiding here, like a top color and then a dark brown color for the last 2 rounds. And I thought it is very beautifully done, and it's certainly done with material that was cut up at home. So yeah, you get what you get and you don't get upset. If these are your colors, these are your colors. And it is a beautiful color palette, I have to say. I have seen much worse. And this was in the basement, which doesn't mean there was anything wrong with it. I turned the corner and I actually went, and I thought, oh God, please let this be super inexpensive. But it was I can't remember how much it was, but it was a bit. I think it was 1,000 or 1,200 something. I think. As it should be, right? Because this is an extraordinary quilt, and this is like falls under the category of New York beauties. When you get in quilting language this many tiny slicey pieces in one form, that is like a really ornate compass rose. Lots of sharp tips. It's very, very hard. And this was like all satin and velvet, really lush, beautiful colors, beautiful Victorian quilt. Some interesting embroidery in between. I think I took one close-up picture of it. And it was under glass. So I didn't know how I felt about that either, because you know that gases can build up between fiber and under glass. So I worried about the future of this piece. I don't know. And I know with rugs, there's no need. There's absolutely no need. With quilts, I don't know. None of it seemed fragile at all. Like I didn't see any loss. So in terms of collectibles, if you're a quilt collector, you should just get in the car right now and be ready for when the store opens in Bellows Falls tomorrow. This is one of the most extraordinary quilts I've ever seen. It's done like a crazy quilt with the stitches, but it's a pieced quilt, right? It's a pieced quilt. So it's not an applique quilt, although parts of it might be applique. The rings around the circles might be applique. But the central parts, I think those are pieced. I could be wrong. It could all be applique. But I didn't stare at it long because it was very seductive and it was dangerous to stand very close to it. But it was one of the three most extraordinary quilts I'm going to say I've ever seen in my life, including quilt shows. Beautiful town, Bellows Falls. If you're anywhere near it, I mean, it's one of these old industrial towns with lots of mills. Here's Teddy. He's standing outside this old-time arcade that's been in business continuously, Jim's Arcade, for 44 years. And beautiful murals, lots of art. It's a bit of a hippie town, so it had a nice vibe. Walking down toward the water, passing this beautiful old mill building, and somebody had painted all of the boarded up windows with silhouettes. They go right away around the corner too. It's just an interesting moment in time, very well kept. Add high pile rugs where loops were all clipped, but all the loops were brought to the same height. Would that be considered Waldoboro? No, that would be considered a clipped rug. So Karen, it's only Waldoboro if it's clipped in such a way that it's sculpted. So sculpted would mean it has a three-dimensional quality, not an even pile. Oh, what did you say? My grandmother made. Oh, my grandma. I'm missing the end of that comment. Have to look back and see if that comes through. Beautiful old mill down there. God, was this gorgeous. This was such a moment in time. And we walked up to the top of this little hill, and guess what? Labyrinth up there. Again, this is Bellows Falls. It's so beautiful. Right on the river. I forgot what river that is there. Little pile of rocks like this. This is where we recorded our video opening our yarn grab bags for the channel, for the Facebook group, and then walked down to the river. And the water was quite warm. I don't know if you're supposed to be in it, but it didn't say to not go in it. Looks almost like a different world out there. Doesn't it look like it could be like Hawaii or something? I mean, Teddy is wearing a Hawaiian shirt, but all the same, it's just so lush and gorgeous, and it was hot. So I got in the water a little bit with Joss, but I told her not to go too far out because you could see little eddies and little whirlpools. The river's moving, and there's always, don't be scared, Mom. I was right there, and I'm a very good swimmer. She's also a very good swimmer, but I'm a very good swimmer. So we were good. We were definitely good. But absolutely beautiful scenery and lots of fun. Okay, so that was catch-up. That took a while. That was catch-up. Let me take a swig. Oh my gosh, I have one more thing to show you. We're not caught up yet. Hold on. I also stopped, and on the way home, I told the kids, it's okay, we're all done with shopping now. But then we passed Greenfield, and it was time to get pizza. So I went, wait a minute, isn't there an antique store in Greenfield? This is just the way, I'm the worst. They like to go to antique stores, I have to say. Teddy finds like vintage characters and stuff like that, so he loves it. Joss looks for stuff like jewelry and little things like that. I went to the store, what's it called? Oh, I forget. I think this is the one that's called Twice something, because there's more than one on Main Street in Greenfield. But you're gonna be upset when you see this. If this appeals to you, you're not gonna believe what I paid for this. It's a nice old geometric, and I think it has a new binding on the back. I'll show you. But it's a geometric, but this time it's long. It's not quite the size of a hearth rug, but it's very long. It's a hit or miss rug, but it seems like it has little trees. You see what I mean? Instead of, we get flowers, we've got varieties of flowers, we get things like that, but I've never seen these little trees. Have you? Because I'm wondering if this is a commercial pattern, but the shading on the little trees, right, and it's in very, very good condition, and I think that this is a new tape that's been put on. Some of the edging is a little sketchy, so I'm definitely not putting it on the floor, but I think this is a new tape, and this was $35. I mean, is that nutty? Isn't that gorgeous? I am actually going to hang this one up. I don't usually hang geometrics, but I'm going to find a place for it because, let me show it to you a little bit closer. I don't want it to go into my wine. I don't know if that's in focus, but it's like carnation pink, pistachio, army green, khaki, kind of a shell color, light yellow, a few different grays, black, ivory, lots of peach and salmon. Just thought it was an extraordinary rug. I mean, I definitely am not in the market for rugs in general, but $35, like really? So I got all excited about that. That was good. That was exciting. And now let's move on to rugs that are for sale on the internet. These are all rugs on eBay. So if you love the following rugs, you know the rugs that I showed you just now, what stores they're in. If you love them, you know where to find them. If you can get there. I know, April, right? Isn't that nutty? I mean, I don't even know if I want it, to be honest. I don't even know if I want it, but I couldn't leave it there because it was on the floor. And the lady said, oh, she just put that into her stall. And I thought, oh God, let's get it off the floor before something amazing happens to it and it's like done, you know. 35 was crazy. I think so. It is beautiful. I don't think it's super old, but I think it's probably 1940s, something like that, maybe 1950s. I don't think it's much newer than that. But it doesn't have a ton of loss. What I do like about it that is really interesting is it does have a lot of different color. I might have to put the ring light on. Hang on. It has a lot of color around the border. Uh, and don't you love that? Don't you love when you don't get a solid border? Can you see? Wait a minute. Can you see some of the blues and stuff? Wait a minute. Let me move the wine. Let me be smart about this because you know what's going to happen next. Can you see how the border is like a little bit, there's like little stripies in there that are different colors of black. There's lots of that around the edges. It's not showing up as well as I want it to. Some of it's almost like inky uh, grape jam type colors, you know, really pretty. Now let's talk about rugs that are on eBay right now. Let's wet our whistles for a second. Yeah, someone else would get it, Pamela, but not just that. You know, you can't be like the hero. Nobody can be the hero of the rugs, right? Because it would be ridiculous and you'd go broke. But it worries me so much when I see things in like high traffic areas and stores that I think are exceptional, or on the ground at a flea market. It's particularly because you know that the vendors got there at like 5 in the morning and that it was wet. Even if it's summer and it's hot, you know the ground was wet. And now the rugs have now been wet again. And how many Saturdays and Sundays have they put the rugs on the wet ground? And that all makes me nervous because that's our history, right? That's our history on the ground rotting away. Um, but then again, it is nice to find stuff in person, right? We're about to talk about rugs that are on eBay currently that you could buy if you have a lot of money. Some of them are very expensive, but and who knows how rugs are stored by sellers on eBay either, right? Each person is going to be different. It's all very worrying. I will say with rugs that you find on eBay, um, if there's a problem with them or it's not as described, you can return them or you can open a case. So that is always a possibility. Not a moth. There's like a tiny little bug flying around my face. He probably wants the wine. This is on eBay right now, and the seller is called Old Threads. This is a beautiful rug. It's not my style, but it is lovely. I would think this is a 1950s, 60s rug. It's $395. And again, the seller on eBay is called Old Threads. There's a couple of things I'm not a big one for subjects like wild animals, but if you are, this is a really unusual one. I'm guessing that this is a commercial pattern, but I haven't seen it. Or if I have seen the pattern, the maker has altered it and personalized it in a way that's so unique that I don't recognize it anymore. So a few of the things I think that are going on here that are really sweet. I like the corners, right? It's got a triple frame, all in neutrals, very nice. Oh, seriously, hailing there, Karen. Oh, okay. Yep, we're here. Oh, thanks, April. The backing alone would be 35. Totally, Dave. So true. Yeah, that's a great point. You know, I'm used to seeing things framed up differently. I kind of like these floating little sort of paisley type characters, right? They remind me of upholstery. Really beautiful, really beautiful. And I like the background behind the lion. I like that it is some kind of a patterned wool, and so is the mane. I love the detail on the body. He's got a very naked looking body. Um, but I mean, it's not lewd, right? It's a lion, but it's an odd color. Maybe it was darker at one point, not sure. But I like the kind of fluffy, ruffly things behind the joints, right? Where you get a little bit of brown and the black outlining. And I really like the expression on the lion's face. It's a very human expression, isn't it? Little red lip. He looks like he's very content. It's very sweet. It's a very relatable rug. This would be great for a children's room too. It's not particularly old. $395 isn't the end of the world. I think for this rug it might be a lot unless you love the subject. It is beautifully done. As you can see, it's beautifully done. This is like a color fill, right? It's not higgledy-piggledy. They're not doing directional hooking. They're just filling the areas. It's very technical and it's very well done. And it is a lovely, lovely rug. And again, the seller is called Old Threads, and it is under Antique Hooked Rug. It is signed, but unless we know who the person is, OG or JJG, it'd be hard. It'd be a hard one to chase. So I'm wondering if there was. Yeah, there is a picture of the back, beautifully executed. I mean, the front is incredibly well executed, and look at the way the back is. I mean, it's on burlap, but beautiful sort of mitered corner, very, very even turn under, right? Beautifully sewn. Absolute, no, not a scary lion at all, Judy. You're right. It makes a difference because this kind of a subject can cross over to as a juvenile subject too, because it's not like a ferocious lion, right? This is a fairly companionable looking lion, really sweet. I think your rug that you showed us would be great for Halloween. Yeah, you know, the checkerboard one, you're right. That's a great idea, Melissa, because it does have lots of little airy, spooky trees. That's a great point, right? With a bunch of jack-o'-lanterns and Halloweens. I have a bunch of Halloween stuff. I mean, I always have her up, of course. I have a bunch of that. Great idea. It does it. It definitely lends itself to some spookiness with the Halloween colors and all of those little spiny trees. That's a really good idea. So this is an exceptional rug. If you like the subject, it is, you know, it's a good price for a rug in great condition. And it wasn't made last year. It wasn't made in the 19th century either, but it wasn't made last year. So beautiful rug. Let's see what's next. So this rug was posted by, and this is the seller's name, Pam _ 490595. So the starting bid on this is $10. And the buy it now price is $95. Now it says hooked rug, but we know that this is a latch hooked rug. This is not a hooked rug the way that we hook rugs. Nothing wrong with latch. I am a big fan of latch. I'm wondering if it is latch. I think it is latch because I can see the pile on it, right? There's no back photo. That would be the dead giveaway. The reason I'm even having this conversation with myself, this is definitely latch, is because sometimes these rugs are Ria rugs, and we'll talk about that in just a second. Ria rugs are much more collectible. Sometimes sellers don't know the difference, and a latch hook rug is maybe worth $20, $40 tops. Some of them are quite collectible. This strikes me as one that would be more collectible, and the reason I say that is because the early latch hook catalogs, right, from the 1920s, 1930s, Shillcraft, some of the early Aunt Lydia, some of the early brands are absolutely had some extraordinary designs that are not boring, right? Not boring, really extraordinary, that weren't available for long and are now quite collectible. So those are the ones I looked for. I have some memorized in my head. This one I don't recognize off the top of my head, and I think it's 40s, 50s because of the brown background. Color palette's kind of giving it away, but it's funny how when you look up hooked rug, you sometimes get latch hooked rugs because not everybody knows that there is a distinction between latch, Ria, and a hooked rug and a punched rug, right? There's lots of different avenues, right, that you could go down. When you pull up the photo, you're not really sure, but it is a lovely rug. And again, many of these rugs are quite collectible. This is a Shillcraft Ready Cut Rugs. That was their line of rugs. Wait a minute, is that the same? No, but you could see how it could be, right? How this could be a Shillcraft rug. Shillcraft rugs, some people are looking for specific ones. Like I'm looking for specific ones. Not the one on the cover and not the one that we just saw. But when you have these old catalogs, you can go through them, right? Because maybe you don't feel the same way about latch that I do, and maybe you don't like that they were, you know, made. The early ones were made with wool, pre-cut wool, or there was a cutting machine. If you wanted to use your own wool, you could cut it yourself. I should do a video of that someday too. It's a pain in the butt. It's not worth having the machine, but it is a cute little tool. Nothing wrong with latch, right? And you can hook latch with wool now. And I have only a couple latch hook kits available, but they're with wool and novelty stuff. Not at all the pre-cut acrylic stuff. But I mean, you can do it with anything. The thing is, if you like the pattern and you start to fall in love with these rugs and look for the patterns, the way you look for quilt patterns, and you get to know the names of the patterns, it is very exciting to find specific rugs, right? Just as you can imagine. And you will never know the pattern. And are you okay? Until you start collecting these old catalogs, because the way that all rugs are finished, hooked rugs too, the name of them and the company that made it is always covered up when you finish it, and you won't know. So until you find the image in a catalog and you go, oh my God, is that called like carnations? And you, oh God, it is called carnations. Now I know what to put into my search, right? Very, very exciting. So latch rugs for me are exciting. I'm always interested in all rugs, right? I'm always interested in all textiles, but they are often confused with RIA rugs, RYA, and I have done a big segment in the past. If you caught those videos and those coffee times on RIA rugs, particularly with Melinda Bird of Bird Call Studio in Maryland, and I will be visiting her in about a week because I have a lot of the wool that her parents imported from Scandinavia, like in the 50s, 60s, and was sitting in storage for many decades and came out. And I bought like one of each color that was available at that time because I was late to the party because I knew it was part of her family history. One of our coffee time or cocktail time episodes was all about that, and Melinda was actually on with us. Well, I'll be in person with Melinda, not this coming weekend, but the following weekend in Maryland at her studio. And I'm sure that I will do a longish video on supplies, on backing, on designs, on the history, every part of the conversation about RIA rugs, because RIA rugs are gorgeous. But you can see they are different than latch hook rugs. They are typically made 100% out of wool, right, and not acrylic, so they already look different. And you are it's a knotting process. You're making knots along something that looks like a yardstick ruler. And because it's done in rows, you get almost like these little haircuts, like these little shelves, right, of height. It's because those are each one row. You don't fill in every single row. If you filled in every single row, it would be standing up very high pile. You would have used an insane amount of wool, and it would look like a latch hook. But because they stagger rows with RIA rugs, it doesn't look like a latch hook, right? You can see that there are lines kind of built in because of the separation of rows. And almost every knot is made of more than one color. So you get this beautiful color blending that is over the top. And you see the lines on the front, but then you see the lines on the back where the knots were made. So, occasionally I look up RIA rugs on eBay or Facebook Marketplace, and inevitably, or I look up latch hook rugs, and inevitably I find RIA rugs. And sometimes they're interesting, and sometimes they're not. But some RIA rugs are worth several $1,000s because it's a collectible pattern that is very rare. And people would follow the RIA rug books like you would follow a cross stitch. They had patterns in them. And those books are very hard to find. They're very expensive. RIA rug catalogs can be $200, $300, $400 just for the catalog, just to get the designs so that you can name the designs, right? So RIA rugs are a whole other subject. And as I say, in about just over a week, you can see here the backing in between the rows. And because the pile is very high and heavy, it settles down, right? Gravity does its work. It settles down. You don't see any of the backing. It settles down onto itself, whether it's on the floor or hung on the wall. But we will be looking at these in detail next weekend, RIA rugs, with Melinda Bird of Bird Call Studio. This is a hooked rug. Now, I found this seller before called, wait a minute, Area Rugs New York City. Yep, Area Rugs New York City. So this is an eBay seller. They have sold 10 rugs. I think that's because of the price. This seller has an insane collection of rugs. I do not know where they're coming from. I don't recognize any of them. They are beautiful old antique rugs like this one. These are extraordinary. So for example, I'm going to show them to you close up as well. This one, and again, the seller is AreaRugsNYC. This one is $21,000, and these are large rugs. I didn't write down the size for this one, but these are large room size rugs. Now, let's talk about this category of rug, right? Because this is a 19th century rug, without a doubt. Now, we'll look at it this way. Let's look at it from some different angles, because I want to talk about the price of it, 21,000. Now, I'm just going to say, for a room size rug that is very, very large, that's a 19th century rug, if we were talking about a woven, nobody would have any trouble spending 21,000, particularly if you knew where it came from or you recognize the pattern. So I don't recognize the pattern on this, but I will say that during the late 19th century, and this is a very hard thing to research, and so far I have not been successful. If you know anything on the subject, please let me know, because I would love to dig in more. There were companies is the wrong word. There were people who would, groups that were typically groups of men, not women, typically groups of men whose work it was to complete rugs within a short amount of time for a client who had ordered something specific. For example, I want something for my living room. Money is not an object. Oh, it feels good to say that. Money is not an object. I would like it to be 10 foot by 8 foot. And the colors that my wife has in that room are brown, black, red, and green. So if it matches, great, or whatever. And groups of men would get together, and it wasn't an official company. That's why this is hard to research. And find rugs the same thrifty way that everybody did. Buy stuff from neighbors, get stuff from the rag man, right? You would need to be in the rags. Put ads in magazines or newspapers. If someone was commissioning something, if it wasn't somebody of a very high class, you might say, do you have any old clothing I can use to put into it? Just because you'd need a crazy amount for a rug this size. But it was remarkable, apparently, how a group of men, and again, it was typically men from everything that I've ever heard or read, could put together a rug that was, for example, 8 by 10, right, in a question of weeks, working full time on it, like a lot of hands, a lot of hands working on it together. So I don't know that this is one of those rugs, but at this time in history, I think it would be very unusual for someone to make a rug this size on their own, right? It's not impossible. It's not impossible. But at the end of the day, this is just like a common sense thing. I don't know this to be true. But if you had the kind of space where you could lay that rug down on the floor, and you had that much in terms of supplies to be able to complete that rug, would you be making a rug in the thrift style? It's the people who are ordering these rugs typically wanted them to be fashioned after the Oriental styled rugs of the day. So in Oriental styles, right? A little bit Americanized, because nobody really knew what an Oriental rug looked like as soon as you got away from the coast, right? As soon as you go inland, maybe you've seen one. Maybe you went to, I don't know, to Salem or something like that, and you were in someone's house and you saw like an imported Oriental rug, like a woven rug, and you had some kind of an impression of it in your mind. Most people who were making probably didn't have catalogs or things to look at, just an impression, right? And they're basing what the design is on other things that are popular at the same time, like Axminster rugs and other woven rugs. So these rugs are typically modeled after what was popular at the time, and what was popular at the time was Oriental rugs, or at least Eastern import rugs. So this is one of them. Does that give it more value or less value? Neutral on that subject. What gives this rug value is the size, the colors that are present, and it's a lot. The lack of damage, right? It looks pristine. The amount of color change in the background, making it truly folky, right? These are the things that give this rug a lot of value. For me, the design of the rug, doesn't do anything for me, but you can picture it with a lot of Victorian furniture on top of it, and how it would be warm and comfortable for someone who could afford it. It would be super blingy, right? It would be a sight to behold. It has like a border of little crowns, right? So that's maybe like a loyalist house or something. Maybe somebody said, this was obviously after the revolution, but somebody said, we're recently from Europe, and we still identify closely with the British culture. I'd love something with crowns. Who knows? But beautifully done. And people who made rugs to sell or made rugs on commission. And again, I don't know that this is one of them. It's just, it's extraordinary size is saying to me it's probably the work of more than one person and it's probably a commission, but it's still hooked. These people would have drawings and designs that would be like um, um, ongoing patterns, right? Not unique patterns that they could say like, oh, do you want something like this in the center, or would you rather have something like this? And then they would execute it. I would imagine, again, impossible to research so far, but I would imagine they'd say, okay, so you want like this kind of thing, lots of flowers in the center, and this kind of design. I don't even know that conversations would go into that kind of detail. Don't know. Would love to be a fly on the wall. Karen did make some Rhea rugs, and you said it was super fun and easy. And Karen, the speed you were going made it look like it was fast too. Was it also fast? You did beautifully, and you found some vintage wool that was pre-cut right on eBay. I forget what that was called, but that was an amazing find. I love the border of this rug. Well, the scrolls, you see all the red and brown in the scrolls. Beautiful. You see the black interrupted a little bit on the corners. You see how they're running out of colors still. It really feels like a hooked rug, and it is a hooked rug. But I love how it goes to brown around the edge. I'm sure with a rug of this quality and size, and I'm sure expense, that it was all black at one time. But it's not that it's hit the sun necessarily. It's that the colors that made up the black, whether it was what must have been an aniline dye if it was black, have faded over time and it turned to brown. And that's part of the beauty of the rug. Okay, so I did write down this rug is 8 foot by 9 inches by 7 foot 6 inches. So it's actually bigger than I thought, a little bit bigger than I thought, a little bit more square than I thought, but absolutely beautiful rug. 21,000. And again, I'm just thinking about value. The thing is, right, if we're honest, right now hooked rugs are not at the peak of their value right now at all, right? They're on a serious dip. So if you are to buy a rug like this, make sure that you buy it because you love it and you feel that you will always love it. Don't buy it as an investment because you're buying at the top of the market right now at that price, If you are lucky and you find a giant rug in an antique store of the same size, it's probably going to be, I would say, honestly, 1 to 2,000. But this seller is fantastic and has a wonderful collection of rugs. 21,000 is not a impulse buy, you know, when you're at the checkout counter and you're like, give me one more thing. It's not one of those, right? So make sure that you're buying it because you love it. Because I'm sure that hooked rugs will make a comeback again. I'm sure we hope that they will. But it's not yet, right? And we can't project forward to when it will definitely be. So, and we've seen too many rugs, right, go through the hands of people like Barbara Johnson. I don't mean that in a negative way. Just rugs that sold at auction 15 years ago for 7,000 now sell for 200. It's not always that ratio, but it's pretty close. So rugs are not doing super well at auction right now, and you just wouldn't want to invest at the top of your budget with this kind of a rug. Oh, I'm getting to like that cranberry wine. All right, so let's look at our next rug. I'm going to look at a few more from the seller because he's got such that was the first one we saw. I put a bunch into the show. We'll probably look at some more on Monday. This bug, it won't leave me alone. Karen says making knots in a Rhea rug goes pretty fast. The rug I designed for the floor, I used Melinda's wool. The March Lion Rhea body was vintage pre-cut wool. Yep. Gail, good morning. You're not late. Rise and shine, sunshine, right? Gail's in Australia logging on, hopefully having your coffee, right? This is another one by the same seller. So AreaRugsNYC. This one's a little more expensive at 22,000 and a half, 22,500. So again, same thing. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's another gorgeous rug. What does this rug have going for it? It's a little bit more expensive. So I didn't write the size on this one. I'm sorry, but it's got to be a little bit larger. This seller, for the most part, seems to be basing the price of the rugs on, like, for example, square inches. And to some extent, that's a good starting point. But when you are really into hooked rugs and you are a collector, there's going to be a lot of other sort of aspects or facets to the specific rug that you're looking at that will or will not make you want to buy it or have it or need it. So it's not just about size. That didn't sound right, but it's not. It's also about subject and rarity and things that we're seeing that are different. So this rug for me is infinitely different than the one before it. I love the one before it. I think I like the one before it more, but this one is very odd. So with this one, we are seeing two hit or miss areas, right? So that in itself is unusual because, you know, we're wanting to see patterning if we are trying to model after like rugs from the Far East. But this one is not doing that. This one has a really serious and busy clover pattern going around the edges. So this might have to do with someone's heritage again, like the blue crowns in the last one. Again, this rug is 22,500, right? So this isn't like a rug that we would just say, "Oh, guess what I got this weekend," right? Or maybe you could, and I would say, "God, good for you. I'm so happy that somebody got this and is going to care for it," right? It's an extraordinary rug. The border is extraordinary, right? It's very Baroque. It's very busy. Lots of colors, right? Very graphic attempt at shading. Lots of different background color. Lots of striation to it. It has a tiny scroll inner border, right? It's got that kind of beaded border around the edge, and then the clovers, right, with lots of Baroque kind of looks like metalwork. And then we've got an interior border with tiny red scrolls and four corners with feathers, right? Feathers, a scroll that resolves into a feather, right? That's a common architectural design motif. But the thing that's really odd for me is the center because we've got a full blast hit or miss center. And the center is normally the focal point. Looks very Irish. Absolutely does look very Irish, which is a further mystery because not to be awful, but if we're talking about the 19th century, right, you don't see a lot of Irish people who are, well, there had to be some. There had to be some Irish people who were doing very, very well. Carnegie was what, Scottish or Irish, something like that. It's unusual. It's unusual because if it's a hat tip to nationality, that's real specific. And that's a lot of national pride right there. This must have been a truly expensive rug. But it is odd that the center is kind of a jumble of hit or miss. Because the hit or miss pattern, while it's very pretty to us now, was kind of like filling up space with the rags that you had, right, in place of doing a more deliberate pattern. So you don't see it a lot as the focal point on rugs that are this exquisite, large, and I'm sure certainly expensive. So it's odd. This is a real mystery rug to me. I wish that the post for it, the eBay post said anything about it. And none of the rugs that are shown by the seller show you the back, right? That's the part I really want to see. Um, Absolutely beautiful border. And I love the directional hooking in the field behind the medallion because it really fights against that very, very light, sort of marble colored hit or miss pattern in the center. Maybe that was it. Maybe they were trying to make it look like a little bit of marble in the center. Maybe that was a conversation that was had. But that sort of crazy hit or miss jumble, that very color controlled palette, is really working theatrically and dramatically against all of that colorful striping. It's absolutely beautiful. It's just unexpected, you know? It's the last thing I would expect to find in the center. This border is over the top. It really is just over the top. Had to be for an Irish family. Had to be, right? Absolutely beautiful. Now this next one is a little less expensive, and let's talk about this. This is so less expensive, 18,800. Now this is obviously not a runner, but this is a stairway rug, right? Not just the treads or the risers, the whole thing. So this rug is excessively long. I'm sorry, I didn't do the math for it. I did on a later one. It will be probably the same. This would have been made to fit someone's specific staircase, right? So one riser, one tread, one riser, one tread, all the way up. And it would have been pre-measured so that the pictures fell correctly, right? There was a picture, in this case, on every riser and every tread. So, I mean, this is insane. This is insane. This, to me, is is more worth 18,800. But let's look at some of the imagery and let's talk about this. So I showed it to you sideways because it's very hard to look at all of it. It does have some wear and tear, but there is a lot of imagery on this rug. There's a lot of storytelling on this rug. It might be that the family who commissioned this rug, it could be that this is homemade. It could be that it's a bunch of feed sacks attached together. It could be, because it's not fancy, it's not ornate, and certainly these kinds of friendly motifs, dogs, houses, people, this isn't something that you would particularly want company to see, right? If you were of the fashionable set, you would want things that were in fashion. This is not in fashion, right? This is super folky, right? So this makes me think more, maybe this was homemade. I would bet that this was homemade, to be honest, because I can't see any kind of commercial outfit saying, okay, what do you want on the fourth step? Cardinals? How many cardinals? I can't, it doesn't sound right. I see them making quite serious rugs, for like the first two that we saw. But beautiful imagery on this rug, very, very specific, probably flowers and plants and stuff that the family particularly loved. This could be the family home. It's an absolutely beautiful rug. It's done in lots of different cuts. There's yarn, there's wool strips. This is an extraordinary rug. For me, of the three that we've seen so far from the seller, a little bit of Sunbonnet Sue action, this makes me think that this rug, this part of it makes me think that this rug is from the 1920s, because this is like a little Dutch windmill and some little Dutch costumes on the girls. And the 1920s really in American history is the period where people went nuts for all things Dutch. Went nuts. Did you see how I did that? It was an accident. For all things Dutch. Like, it was Dutch mania. Absolutely crazy for everything Dutch. So that makes me think this is a 1920s era rug, which would fit with the style, with the colors, with the very cheerful coloring of the entire rug. Now, I just want to bring you back to the whole picture before we move to the next one. For me, if I were collecting, right, and it wouldn't be for me, it would be for you if you were shopping. But for me, this would be the one of the ones we've seen so far that I would get, because in terms of collecting, and I have it sideways, right, you get that. It's so unique. It's completely unique. It's also a record of the house that it was in, right? And without knowing that would help a lot with heartstrings and money. So what does this rug have going for it? It's extraordinary. All of these pictures. Kirsten, good to see you. I showed pictures of us earlier. This has a lot going for it in terms of imagery and storytelling. It's over the top, right? It's absolutely beautiful. It's a super cheerful rug. What does it not have going for it besides the price? It's odd shape, right? Because would you have a hallway long enough to put this down? And would you want to put it down? And we're talking about a rug that is going to be like more than 10 feet tall and very, very skinny. Where could you display this that would make sense, right? That you could really enjoy it. So in terms of collecting, its odd shape is definitely working against it. Right? If this was split into 2 or 3 pieces, man, these would go like hotcakes. But it's one long skinny piece. And yeah, it's interesting that it came off someone's stairs, right? It's a story of the stairs. But the shape is tough. The shape is very tough. And that might be why the seller has it a couple $1,000s less, but who knows? Now, here's another one that was also same seller, AreaRugsNYC. This one is expensive again. This one is, and I don't really understand the pricing, right? Because we've looked at quite a few rugs that are $18,000, $20,000, $22,000. This one is $8,800. Now, I get that it's a hit or miss rug, but it's still 5 feet 4 inches by 4 feet 5 inches. So it is, I guess, a lot smaller. It seems, well, I was going to say quite inexpensive. Not for me, compared to the ones we've seen so far. I still think this is a very important rug. So this is a hit or miss rug, but it has like this little ripple to it, right? This is very easy to do as a hit or miss design. Messes with your brain a little and makes you a little seasick, but it's just a bit of a more fancy way of doing hit or miss. Another 19th century rug, just in a different way, a little bit more blingy. I think it's a beautiful effect. We do see this a lot, but it's very consistent, it's very clean, it's very tidy, and it's super. Can you imagine displaying this on the wall and having like some beautiful like sort of sculpture in front of it? I mean, this would be an extraordinary contemporary piece to display. As a piece of art, there's not a lot of homes that this would not look well on the wall, right? Because it's so, it's not that it's neutral, but it's very contained. It's not so colorful and overtly loud. I think the amount of color in it somehow it neutralizes itself and becomes very static. But it's really, I think, both historic and contemporary. I would think it's the very kind of thing that a collector would be looking for because it makes an exceptional backdrop to anywhere, to absolutely anywhere. Now, this is another exceptional rug. This one is even less expensive at 7,500. So still more than I would at this moment in my life ever think about spending on anything other than maybe a car or a house. But this is an extraordinary rug because we are used to seeing checkerboard. We talk about checkerboards all the time and the breakdown of checkerboards and how hit or miss, right? Particularly in 19th century rugs is very common fill for a checkerboard background, and sometimes it's all built in for you in the pattern. Sometimes you're just sitting there on the floor with a cut out cardboard and just tracing it onto your backing. That Pearl McGowan describes this in Dreams Beneath the Design, right? Her first book from 1946, she describes using a postcard and just shimmying it along right diagonally, right, along the grain to make a composition like this, and then you fill it. You figure it out as you go. So the squares with the hit or miss stripies, that's easy. That's like a basket kind of weave, just the four edges, right? And all the other squares are done with different kinds of flowers. Exciting. Maybe they're in the garden. Maybe you have a book of flowers. Oh, Sharon, good to see you. Oh, you were blueberry picking. That sounds so quaint and summery and perfect. Oh, that sounds so good. Did you get your thrills on Blueberry Hill? Just got to ask, right? That sounds amazing. I should see if there's any places around here to do that with the kids. Let's look closer at this rug. Before I move off of this photo, do you see the anomaly in this rug? It's like the rug has been cut at some point or something, because you see it's very careful until you get to that bottom row, and then there's a problem with there being some extra flowers. Now, could it be that there's like a flower for, maybe this is like a community rug, maybe this was like a hooking bee, not as common as a quilting bee, but they did exist. Could this be a quilting bee? Maybe there wasn't enough squares for everybody to place their favorite flower or something like that. Or at one point, was this rug cut and this part put on? Because it looks like, wait a minute, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, so if you look at the northeast, the right-hand side wall, if you cut that bottom strip off and you flipped it up, right, it would fit in with that configuration and it would not interrupt the pattern of the checkerboard. Do you see what I mean? If that, just that bottom row, if you were to tip it up, it would fit there. So that makes me wonder whether, because of the size of a room, this rug has been cut and put back together, because that doesn't, for a rug that is this large, that took this much time and work, no thrills, too hot, it seems weird to me that that would be a screw up, right? That doesn't really make sense. I think it was cut from that side and sewn onto the bottom. But you know what I'd like to see is the back of the rug to confirm that. If I was shopping for this rug, I would want to see the back of it. And, well, here's a close-up of it. And we can't tell by looking at the front. But, you know what's interesting is, ooh, I think we have confirmation, right? Because this whole bottom strip would be cut off and it would be flipped up to the right. And you see that second square in on the right, the red one with the 3 little flowers, you see how it's roughed up on the interior side. It would make a lot of sense that that was at one time on the outer side, right? Because that seam is roughed up. Possible. It's not impossible. Seems possible. It's not consistently roughed up, but it's quite roughed up in that one place. Interesting. It's a beautiful rug regardless. Lots of flowers, lots of stripes, really colorful, very vivid and vibrant still. A lot of gray, right? And gray is a great neutral. Nothing wrong with gray. And it is a great sort of sounding board for all of these great colors of all of the flowers. So it functions very well as a neutral. Um, I would also put this rug in the late Victorian period, this one. Um, it's funny to me that the background isn't something like a rich rose, or maybe because they figured they were doing so many pinks with, yeah, exactly, Karen, two floral boxes together. It's an odd rug because there is a lot of the lighter gray and the darker gray. They've got at least two grays going, and maybe there's just a lot of gray clothing to cut up. That's possible as well. But it's an absolutely beautiful rug, 7,500, Area Rugs NYC on eBay. Interesting, isn't it? It's interesting where there's loss and where there's not loss. I mean, it's very common back in the day if you had a large rug, right, because of thrift, because of wars, because of everything, that you would have to alter stuff. If you moved or you had a different shaped room, you're going to take your stuff. You might just have to alter it to fit differently. People were so ingenious back then and so capable back then. Now this rug is even less. Again, this is one of my favorite rugs of the night. It's 7,500. I'm sorry, I didn't think to write down the measurement for all of these. I was kind of racing this morning. I love this rug because I love the kind of hex type quilt design that we're seeing. And you notice it's every other square. So there's two different geometric designs happening. One is a star and one is more like of a Maltese cross, right? There's only two, and they're done in the same color for each iteration, but there's two different ones. And the flowers, there's two different flower patterns, but we're seeing them in different colors every time. So for me, this is a really exciting rug. There's only one image of it on the auction. For 7,500, I'd number one want to see it in person. Number two, want to see more than one photo. Number three, definitely want to see the back of it. But I think this is an extraordinary rug, another beautiful bright rug. Talk about a graceful balance of geometric and floral, right? Because these are two constants, constant motifs. I don't know how rug hookers fight about geometrics and florals so much. I hear so many stories about people fighting that they came up with this design or that design. And if we're talking about a quilt square or a floral, it's very, very hard to say that that belongs to you. Not even intellectual property in most cases. These are motifs that we have seen since before any of us were born. This is just a very unusual handling of these two motifs because both of them are very complicated. The geometric is very complicated, but so is the floral, right? That a lot of fine lines, a lot of detail going into the floral, and you can see they've tipped the orientation of the floral many times, right? So just very unusual. It could be that this is a rug that was done by more than one person. It could be that this is a rug that would have been commissioned. It's very bright, right? But it's not patriotic. It's another very unusual rug. I think that this is well worth 7,500. I really do. Of the rugs that we've seen, this price is not just low compared to 20 something thousand, but I think this is an extraordinary rug. I don't think it's as large as the others, but again, talk about a piece for your wall. I mean, seriously, imagine this piece on your wall with a bunch of pottery jugs or something like that, or a bunch of Bristol glass vases or something colorful. You know, can you imagine? Even baskets, right? This on the wall in a nice country table or wooden island or something, and a bunch of funky baskets in different shapes. Can you imagine? What a vignette, right? 7,500. If it was a painting, nobody would say, oh, that's a lot, right? It's just because it's a hooked rug. Now, this one's more expensive. This is a larger rug, again, 17,000. So, I'm sorry. If you're interested in the sizes on all of these, since I was a bit negligent, I only put the size for some of them. Again, the eBay seller is called AreaRugsNYC. This is a phenomenal hit or miss. I mean, this is another cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs moment. Beautiful dark border. You can see all the color change in the border from all the different materials that were used, but my God, that center. And you can almost see at least two people working on it. You see that divide, right? It's almost like two people were working from two different sides and they met at one point. That's what it makes me think of. It's so busy. It reminds me of an animal skin print, but much more benign and really lovely, much more colorful. Let's look more close up at this one. Again, this one's 17,000. It's a beautiful rug to have. It's a beautiful rug. I'm never going to say to have on the floor, right? Because it's an old rug. It's stunning, Kirsten, isn't it? I would never say put this on the floor, but another great wall piece. You could put like beautiful furniture in front of this. plants and plant stands. It would be absolutely gorgeous. You could put it on the floor in a very low traffic area where there are not kids and pets, right? If you're a sock family and not a shoe family, this could do more service on the floor. And particularly you, right? Because you could fix it. And yes, I'm talking to you because you're all watching a show about rug hooking and you probably do it. So you could fix it if a few little bits came out. But it is an extraordinary pattern. Lots of work. I know, Sharon. This is the one for you if you had it. It's a lot of money to part with, right? It's a huge investment, and and I'm going to say it. You're never going to get 17,000 back for this. Not in the near future. If people start getting more interested in hooked rugs and the market spikes, then yeah, we could see prices like 30,000 on this again, or maybe 35, but not right now, and probably not soon, really, because rug hooking has all but died, right? We're trying to bring it back collectively, and I think we're doing a dang good job, but it's going to take a little time, and the pendulum's got to swing too, right, for people to become interested in rug making again. But this is an extraordinary hit or miss rug. It's so, so, so beautiful, and the way that it has these straight lines does make me think people are working alongside each other and meeting up. I don't think that that's been done on purpose. I think it's like I'm stopping here and I'll work over there now, and you go up to this line. It's very organic, really lovely rug. Let's do a couple more. This is another one that is a little less expensive at 13,000. And it's all relative, isn't it? Because we're still talking about the thousands. Absolutely beautiful rug, very different. So this for me has an early 20th century feel. So for me, I'm pretty sure that this is a much newer rug. It does have a lovely Victorian basket, but the palette is more of an early 20th century palette, right? This is more of an Art Deco feel. I could well be wrong. Or it could be very faded. We can't see the back, so I can't be sure about that. The roses look vivid. It could be it could be for like a boudoir or something like that, and somebody insisted on having these soft colors. It could be for a bedroom. That could well be. There's no reason why it shouldn't be a Victorian rug except for the baskets, right? We don't really see baskets as a popular motif in fashion settings until the 1920s. Until then, they are like a country accessory. But when we hit the 1920s, we're looking at Sunbonnet Sue, and we're looking at nostalgia and old time, baskets, pretty old baskets that look like this. So this is a hard one to call in terms of the date. It's another large rug. I think this is 12 foot by 9 foot, just over. And yeah, just gorgeous, very, very pale. For me, this one, in terms of collector's value, it's not as collectible. And it's because it's not its fault, obviously, but it does have some discoloration on the white part because it's white. And because it has discoloration, I wouldn't put it down on the floor because it's bound to get more. It's bound to be ruined completely. There goes your 13,000. But then at the same time, I wouldn't put it on the wall because the discoloration is noticeable. So it's tricky. It is beautiful. It need the right setting. It's like a theatrical curtain. It's like a backdrop. It's beautiful, but you see how that would be problematic, right? Unless you were like, oh, I'm just in love with it, I'm going to figure out how to clean that background. Well, that would be a different conversation. We'd be talking about restoration and repair if you were going to do that too. But it is absolutely beautiful. It's very graphic. It's absolutely beautiful. If that second ring, like if just the inner part, which in itself could be its own rug, right? If that was just on its own, just that oval in the center, that would be a beautiful rug all on its own. If that ring right outside of it, that solid white, was any other color, I would think the rug would be a lot more valuable. Is it possible to, I'm just bouncing this off live so it gives us something to talk about, color the rug, like dye it new? And I would say, yeah, that's definitely possible. For this amount of money, you would want to do a very good controlled experiment, but I think it would be entirely possible to color the loops of the rug. And we've talked about this many times, the different pens, using a brush, using a toothbrush, right? That's Donna Swanson's tip from Whispering Hill. You could get color into it. You would want to do a lot of reading and a lot of testing before you got going on it. But that could be a solution if you were in love with a rug like this. I could see an interior ring. What color would you do if you were doing an interior ring? not the inside bit, but like that outer ring that just looks like it has a lot of footprints on it from many years. I'm trying to think of what color I would do for that. I might be, it's such cool colors right now. I don't know that you'd want to introduce, I mean, I don't think I'd want to, for myself, introduce like a carnation pink because I think it'd be too pink and blue. Um, I don't think I'd want to introduce like a pistachio though because there's no greens. There's a little bit of yellow in the daisies. I don't think I'd want to introduce a khaki because I think it would sadden the whole thing, right? Because it's already got a lot of cool colors and it's already got a lot of brown. I'm wondering if something like more yellow would work, even like a gold, that kind of thing. The way it is right now looks like a painted platter. It does. It looks like a platter, like a tray. It really is beautiful. I mean, you could go brighter, but no, you really couldn't because then it would affect because you'd have to, if you were going through that outside border, outside this center oval, it would include the basket handle and under the basket handle. And then you're right up against the red rose. So it'd be tricky. It'd be tricky. You'd have to pick the absolutely perfect color. I think I would, for myself, go with some kind of a lilac and stay cool in the blue family, but more of a purple. But it would make it look even more feminine. Luckily, I am a female, and I would enjoy that very much. But I don't know that everybody would. You could also do it in black, but then that would really affect the scrolls, right? Because they're black. This is tricky. Judy says maybe pick up the blues from the border. Yeah, you could go, you're right, Judy, you could do you could go a lighter blue or you could go a darker blue. I think you'd have to go the lighter blue because of that black scroll, because the black scroll is filled in. Let's look at some more pictures of it. The black, maybe that'll give us some clues. Oh wow, there's way more colors than I thought. Way more colors. Ooh, Jiminy Cricket. I like that caramel color that's in there. Interesting. See, I thought it was just light blue in the border. No, it's blues and browns and a little bit of red even. Gosh, isn't that a game changer? This is a beautiful rug, isn't it? Holy mackerel, 13,000. Whoa, okay. Game changer. Yeah, I feel like you could definitely pick up the blue. You could pick up the blue or the caramel and be, you know what? I think there is a little green. You see the soft leaves? That could be a little bit of very, very soft green there. I think I'd still do it lilac for myself. Isn't that great hit or miss coloration that's in that border? Isn't that something? God, that's gorgeous, isn't it? And this is the center. I mean, it's just beautifully done. It's absolutely beautifully done. That's a tough one. You know, it feels like a more contemporary rug to me. It's very, very, very feminine. We'll move on, but things to think about, things to make you go, So let's probably look at one more. Wow, talk about night and day, right? Beautiful hit or miss pattern. Somebody went absolutely bonkers with this one. This is 12 feet 3 inches by 9 feet 1 inch. And this one, like, I'm not being sarcastic, is only 13,000. So it's just making me wonder what the seller, like what sort of criteria the seller has in mind. Because is the seller basing it on the size of the rug? Because this is an enormous rug, and it's the least expensive one one of the least expensive ones we've seen so far. Maybe the seller feels in terms of a personal aesthetic, like, yeah, hit or miss rugs not so good. Because remember the stepped hit or miss, that was very low too at 7,000, something like that. Low being relative, but yeah, I mean, the thing with hit or miss rugs is these are proper 19th century folky rugs. There's nothing wrong with this. There not being a color plan. There is still a color plan, but it's almost like this rug is missing the center field because the hit or miss goes right across it and through it. We've got that center medallion, right? That little cluster of flowers looking super beautiful, and we've got a very odd set of stylized scrolls in the corner, right? Almost like little, what do you call something that's three-sided? What's that Irish word for something that's three-sided? Three sides are supposed to be lucky, also representing the Trinity, right? Could mean a lot of things. It's just funny because I would expect to see the scrolls either closer in and touching each other to create like a border, like a defined border. That's it, Judy. Triskelion. This was in our Celtic class, right? And I already forgot the word. Shame on me. Triskelion. I'm not sure I'm saying that right, but that's exactly the word that I was thinking of. Thank you. Wouldn't you expect these scrolls to be touching each other? Just in terms of an aesthetic, right? Or have some kind of connector, just to define, because they are truly floating in space. And this is a very unstable background because of the amount of hit or miss that we're seeing here. It's an extraordinary amount of hit or miss. It's raining hit or miss, not men. It's raining hit or miss. It's really beautiful and graphic, though, isn't it? It's very theatrical. It's wild. It's another one of these antique rugs that is so contemporary that it's crazy. So the thing that troubles me in terms of composition is I would like to see the scrolls either touching or more toward the corner. Like, get in the corner. Get in the corner, you little dunce. Get over there. Because right now, it's creating a very unstable pattern. Nothing is connected to anything. And it's not well proportioned either, because the corner scrolls are enormous and the center floral cluster is tiny. So it's very unusual. Having said that, I absolutely love this rug. I absolutely embrace it for its weirdness and the way that it is really breaking all the rules. Um, it's unusual. It's very unusual. And again, it's another rug that would be fantastic in a contemporary setting. I would be really tempted to put like a weird barnyard, old beaten up wood frame around this, even with some old paint on it, because it is that age. It is that age. Oh, I'd love to see a frame on this that was like that green color, like the spearmint green color, all beat up from someone's old barn or something. So it's just a beautiful piece. I'd also like to see like a purple frame on it. I don't think you'd find that as a piece of barn wood. But I think it's an extraordinary piece, and there is a lot of color change in the background, even though it's all directional hit or miss. On the right-hand side, you can see that whole right-hand bar is much lighter colors. And I think they tried to repeat that on the left, realizing that if there's more than one person working on this, their hands are picking colors in a different balance color plan. Do you know what I mean? So if they're both sitting with baskets of darks and lights, the person who started doing the sides first has a tendency to pick more lights or more equal lights and darks. And whoever has done the middle, and maybe this was the same person and it was done on purpose, is choosing more balanced blacks and whites, darks and lights. So there's a little bit of an imbalance on the sides because we're seeing a little more light creeping in on both right and left. So that's interesting too, because then it brings up the question, is this done by more than one person? Is this a commercial pattern? Sue's, great to see you. I think it is a commercial pattern. I think it's extraordinary. I could also see it being a family pattern, right? People sitting around at night together and saying, okay, do you need more lights? You need more darks? How much more of that purple do you have from your dress last year? Can I have some of that purple? Is there any left? I could see like a group of women who know each other, whether family or friends or B situation, sitting together and looking at this and thinking, yeah, this is what I need. And you'd have to step way far back to be able to see that the colors are taking on a pattern of their own, right? And separating from the rest of the background. It's very well executed. Lots of little shadows, lots of little glimmers, right? This is well before the days of shading, right? This is very graphic. This is Art Nouveau period. Really, really beautiful, lush colors. And I think you probably don't appreciate a rug like this unless you are right on top of it. But I mean, even standing on top of it, you're probably at least 5 feet away from it, right? You don't really see the color change until you look at the motifs this close up. This is that tiny center, really out of balance. Dave says, we need a government grant for hooked rug rescue. Absolutely. We never appreciate something until it's almost lost. That's just human nature, isn't it? That's just the crappy side of human nature. That's so true. It's so true. You don't, until it's a 4-alarm fire, you just let it keep sliding, because I think as human beings, we're lazy by nature and cheap, and it's just the way that it goes. But also priorities, right? Not everybody can afford to save these rugs. And in most cases, the people who can't afford to do it are not interested in this style of art, because the people who shop for them are looking for brand new things. That's a huge generalization because there are a lot of very wealthy people who collect folk art. But if you've ever searched through catalogs of folk art, how many catalogs of Sotheby's folk art do you see um, as opposed to, for example, Asian art or jewelry, right? Or modern painting, right? And I love all of those things too, but not very many is the answer. A handful out of many, many years of auction house activity. So really beautiful scrolls in the corner too, just a bit odd, right? Just a bit odd. And this would have been a very easy pattern if somebody had drawn this, right? If it is a homemade rug or a commercial rug, somebody drew it, regardless, it would be very easy to draw it and to transfer the pattern with ink or chalk or stencils to the other corners or bluing. Bluing was just water with a tiny bit of blue ink in it that you could take a brush to and just paint. Let's save this one for next time because we are at 9:01. Gosh, I love looking at old rugs, and I loved catching up with you. I did so much rug stuff. You know, I don't want to brag. New England is excellent for hooked rugs. That's why every time I go away, I feel like there's so much to talk about because I see so many things that I'm so inspired by. And I hope it's like that where you live too. I hope it is. But we're so lucky. This is like the arguably like the hornet's nest of rug cooking, right? And where it all began, the cradle of as well. And we see so many beautiful things, but also beautiful things out there on the internet. These are very expensive things. Although we also saw the latch rug, right, which is starting at like what was it, $10 or something? Probably a Shillcraft rug, if that's up your alley at all. And then we saw that beautiful lion rug at the beginning. So when we return to this show, because I have lots more, but when I return to this show on Monday, let's look at some more of these rugs. I want to look at some of these older ones because I feel like we're probably not going to buy these rugs, right? I wish that I could buy all of them. I wish that I could buy all of them. And if I could buy all of them, I guess it would go without saying that I would have a huge space to display them in and they would all be safe. Which is a great thought. But it's good to at least look at them and to talk about the way that they're made and to try to picture the situation that they were made in and talk about the detail and all of the motifs in it because these are motifs that we see 100% in today's designs as well. So it's interesting to look and chat together and see what we can observe. And if we can't have the rug, we might as well take as much as we can from the rug in terms of design and color and inspiration and ideas. And we can take that part for free and work it into our own work, right? So file it in your memory bank. But we'll look at a bunch more rugs on Monday when I come back to you for coffee time at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Baby's done out there. Dave says, I need to find someone who could write a proposal for a grant. There is money for the arts hiding. I absolutely believe that. It sounds like you're serious. I love that. That would be incredible. I don't want to say too much. I have this dream. I have this incredible. Okay. It seems like there's always a man at the window, and whenever I say like a great idea that I have, like I was just about to tell you my big dream, and I think I will because now I've blown it up too much. I always feel like there's a man at the window who's about to take it away from me, and I don't have the means to do this right now anyway. But my big overarching idea, right? I never thought I was going to say this until I was ready to do it. This is probably really far away, but is to have like a village like Mystic Seaport or Plymouth Plantation and have old buildings, like say it'd probably be New England because I love New England. Say it's on Cape Cod or say it's somewhere in Massachusetts or Vermont, anywhere. But I want to move a bunch of old buildings that are at risk, right? Beautiful old buildings, little country store, little post office, few little houses, and create like a little community around, like in an open space around Village Green, and have every single one of those buildings be safe and be occupied, right? And every building would be like a different craft, right? And because I'm rug heavy, there'd probably be a few buildings where there would be classes and workshops on rugs like every day, but there'd be one for quilting, one for embroidery, one for braiding, maybe an area for pottery. Maybe there'd be a couple houses were used as a bed and breakfast. There'd be a beautiful village green with a gazebo where there could be music at night. On the holidays, can you imagine the holidays having Christmas strolls? There could be little stores that still sold little things, candy, muffins, food. You could sleep there. You could eat there. You could wake up and take a class in bookmaking and then wake up and take a class in braiding or rug making or quilt making. And there would be exhibition spaces. And it would also be for the immediate community so that people who lived locally could have a discount. They could come and take classes a little bit less and just use it all the time. School kids could use it. Adults could make it a destination. And it would have so many different crafts and arts that it wouldn't be like female heavy. It could be like maybe there's decoy carving, or I don't want to be sexist either, right? But I mean, there'd be all kinds of things. It would be so fun. Just thinking of celebrating every holiday on the village green. Maybe there could be animals there sometimes on special days, and you could come and see the animals. And oh my God, I just think about this all the time. And I think about the amount of rugs, right? That if I could ever create this, it would be a huge grant. All the stuff that you could have hanging, and also the buildings that could be saved, right? If you just think about, I can't start this soapboxing because I'll go nuts, but you think about the buildings in your lifetime from your town that are not there anymore, right? Like if you could just take a handful of those and save them and put them into this like handmade village, right? Not curated. I hate the word curated, but into this village setting, and that for all of them to be used, for there to be voices and laughter and happiness and productivity. I'm going to choke myself up in all of these places that have otherwise had it and are just going to be knocked down for another parking lot, a Joni Mitchell parking lot, right? It'd be amazing to do. So I have to figure out how to do that. I think about that every night before I go to bed, every single night. It is the man in the tree. Yeah, the dad used to say, steals our ideas as soon as we say them out loud. It's so true. Somebody's going to start setting that up tomorrow. I have a name for it too. I'm not saying what the name is because then the man in the tree will definitely get it. But if the man in the tree always has more money anyway, so I can't compete with that. But maybe I can figure it out one of these days because it would give us a great destination where we could come and not just do rug making, but do so many other things and have spaces that are just for hanging out and sitting and being together and having a coffee or a drink, maybe a little old pub kind of thing. Some of them were tiny. It would be a lot of fun. It would be a lot of fun. And the thing that gave me the idea is reading the biography of, what's her name? Jenny Doan, the Missouri Star Quilt Company, right? Jenny Doan. Is it Jenny Doan? I think so. But I listened to her biography on book cassette quite a bit. And I mean, she went from having absolutely nothing and just learning how to quilt to, at this moment in Missouri, there's a whole town that is devoted to quilt making. And every building on that old Main Street that was a nothing town that had it, she bought. And all of them are storefronts for different themed quilts, like quilt stores, like just Civil War fabrics, just whatever fabrics, and people come in busloads, quilters, obviously, and that's their vacation. And they go up and down the street and they shop. And I thought, it can be done. There's a prototype for it now. It can be done. Jenny Doan, thank you. It is a great book. Yeah, you're right. It's Doan. I just love that. I love that story. To be continued, something to think about tonight. If you can think about how to make it happen, let's do it. I am ready to go. God, that would be fun. We could do some live shows and actually all be together sometimes. That would be amazing. Happy weekend, everybody. Have a great weekend. I'm celebrating my sister's birthday tomorrow with my mom at our sushi place, and we are going to hit the flea market, the Elephant's Trunk, on Sunday. So if you're running around, don't take all the rugs. Let me check them out too. Just kidding. I don't need anything else. But I'm only taking off a few hours, just an overnight. Mom, we're going to be in touch about the time tomorrow. But and then I'll be back at work on Sunday because I have been doing a lot of fooling around summertime stuff. I'll get the rest of the orders out. And I will see you back here on Monday at, again, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for a continuation of this conversation. Rugs that are on auction now, antique and vintage rugs. Happy weekend, everybody. I will see you Monday. And if you need me in the meantime, ribboncandyhooking@gmail.com. Happy weekend.